Before you scroll away, before you decide that this is just another motivational speech, I want you to stop for a moment, take a breath. Because there comes a time in every person's life when you can no longer run from the question that has been waiting inside you. Who are you? Not who your family told you to be. Not who society expects you to be. Not who your failures convinced you that you are. Not who your enemies said you would become. And not even who your past says you must remain. Who are you? Because sometimes the greatest battle in your life is not finding success. It is finding yourself. You can have people around you and still feel alone. You can have money and still feel empty. You can receive applause and still go home questioning your worth. You can look successful on the outside while secretly wondering whether you have lost yourself somewhere along the journey. Before you scroll away, before you decide that this is just another motivational speech, I want you to stop for a moment, take a breath. Because there comes a time in every person's life when you can no longer run from the question that has been waiting inside you. Who are you? Not who your family told you to be. Not who society expects you to be. Not who your failures convinced you that you are. Not who your enemies said you would become. And not even who your past says you must remain. Who are you? Because sometimes the greatest battle in your life is not finding success. It is finding yourself. You can have people around you and still feel alone. You can have money and still feel empty. You can receive applause and still go home questioning your worth. You can look successful on the outside while secretly wondering whether you have lost yourself somewhere along the journey. You become so concerned with being accepted that you stop asking whether you are being authentic. You become so afraid of disappointing people that you start disappointing yourself. And one day you look into the mirror and realize, I don't know myself anymore. If that is where you are today, I want you to understand something. You are not broken. You are becoming aware. There is a difference. Awareness can feel painful because it forces you to see what you have avoided. It forces you to confront the relationships that are no longer healthy. It forces you to question the dreams you inherited instead of choosing. It forces you to acknowledge that some of the things you chased were never truly yours. But awareness is also the beginning of freedom. You cannot change what you refuse to see. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. And you cannot find yourself while constantly pretending to be somebody else. Maybe you spent years trying to prove your worth. Maybe you believed that if you achieved enough, earned enough, helped enough people, or received enough approval, eventually you would feel complete. But approval is a dangerous place to build your identity, because the same people who celebrate you today may criticize you tomorrow. The same crowd that applauds you can turn around and question you. If your identity depends on applause, then criticism will destroy you. You have to know who you are when nobody is clapping. You have to know who you are when the room is empty. You have to know who you are when the phone stops ringing. You have to know who you are when the opportunity disappears. Because your value cannot be determined by circumstances. Your worth cannot rise and fall with your bank account. Your identity cannot be controlled by somebody else's opinion. There is something inside you that existed before the applause. There is something inside you that existed before the rejection. There is something inside you that existed before the failure. And that something is worth discovering. Maybe your life has recently fallen apart. Maybe a relationship ended. Maybe a business failed. Maybe a dream collapsed. Maybe someone you trusted betrayed you. Maybe you reached a place where you said, I don't know what happens next. But perhaps the question is not, what happens next? Perhaps the question is, who am I becoming because of what happened? Pain has a way of introducing you to yourself. When everything is comfortable, you may never discover your strength. When everything goes according to plan, you may never discover your creativity. When everyone stays beside you, you may never discover how strong you can become alone. And sometimes life removes things, not because you are being punished, But because you are being redirected, you thought the closed door meant rejection. Maybe it meant protection. You thought the ending meant failure. Maybe it meant transition. You thought the season was destroying you. Maybe it was revealing you. You have spent enough time asking why it happened. Now ask what it is producing in you. What is this season teaching you? What is it removing? What is it strengthening? What is it revealing? Because your life is not defined only by what happens to you. Your life is also defined by what you decide to become afterward. You cannot always control the storm, but you can decide what kind of person walks out of it. And maybe today is the day you stop trying to return to the person you were before the storm. Maybe you are supposed to become someone stronger, someone wiser, someone more courageous. Someone who finally understands their own value. So look inward, be honest with yourself. Ask yourself difficult questions. What do I actually want? What do I believe? What am I afraid of? What am I tolerating? What am I pretending not to know? What dreams have I buried because someone told me they were impossible? And perhaps the most important question, what would I become if I stopped living for everybody else's approval? You don't need permission to become yourself. You need courage. And courage does not mean that you are never afraid. Courage means fear no longer gets to make every decision. You can be afraid and still move. You can be uncertain and still begin. You can be wounded and still heal. You can be rejected and still rise. You can lose something and still find something greater within yourself. So don't run from the search. Find yourself, because the person you are looking for may have been waiting inside you all along.